Everybody's got a price, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a pod, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price.
What's up, everybody? It's Marcus D'Angelo, and we are back for another episode of Everybody's Got a Pod. But this week, we're going to have to jump back into the archives. The $1 Million Man and I were not able to link up this week. We do have something really fun for listeners, though. We're jumping back into the archives for another edition of the best of Ask Ted Anything. A lot of these early episodes have questions being answered that I see coming up every time we do a prompt for Ask Ted Anything. So a lot of you who have been looking for answers to some of these questions but haven't been listening to the podcast since the very beginning are going to get those questions answered today. Ted and I will be back next week, and we're planning on talking about first the 1995 WrestleMania, which is WrestleMania 11, and the involvement with Lawrence Taylor and so much more. And then the week after that, it's going to be all about WrestleMania 6 in the Sky Dome there in Toronto. So a lot of great stuff coming up here on the podcast. Appreciate you guys, and we'll catch you next week right here on Everybody's Got a Pod. You know, this week it's our 9th edition of Ask Ted Anything, and we've got a bunch of fan questions, but this will be my question for you for the week, Ted.
Okay.
When you were in the business as an active wrestler, what was your diet like while you're on the road? Because we hear all the time that it's really difficult to find food that's healthy if you want to maintain a good body, right?
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of my eating, and it's like I couldn't eat anything after like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, because if I did, I'd be thrown up in a ring. So a lot of times I didn't eat. I would quick stop food, peanuts, beef jerky, whatever. But I drank a lot of beer. I mean, beer. I mean, when I traveled with Dick Murdoch, oh my gosh, I mean, unbelievable. I mean, he was such a great wrestler too, but he could drink that beer, man. And it's like, it was kind of like that was the thing. It's like, especially again, territorial days, depending on the trip you're going to make. We get to the town and everybody's got a cooler in their car, stop at the 7-Eleven or wherever you can, get a case of beer, put it on ice, and they'll be ready for the trip home or the trip to the next town, so, there was a lot of, on the road, drinking, not necessarily for the driver, but everybody else in the car.
And that was like your meal whenever you'd leave. It's like, just drink a couple beers.
But I mean, I never, one of my favorite meals, even to this day, is breakfast. I love 3 eggs over easy, and hash browns, and a double order of sausage or bacon or whatever, and toast. I love breakfast. Okay, something else, or so like easy, like hamburger steak, but again, at night after a wrestling show, you're talking about you're getting out at 10:30, 11 o'clock. Unless you stop like at a truck stop and go in and sit down and eat, and none of us ever did that. You would either eat when you got home or wait till the next day.
All right, let's get into these questions, Ted. The first one is from Giggity Griggle, I guess is how you say it. One of your initial episodes, you talked about how Vince initially told you he wanted you to be present in the gym because of his focus on physique. Yours was more athletic/endurance based. Do you remember what your general fitness and nutrition regimen was during your best years?
Oh, yeah. Well, when I went, obviously after I signed with Vince, I started going to the gym on a regular basis, but it was, it wasn't like I didn't go with a trainer. I didn't have somebody, edging me on. I mean, I had, I had been enough of an athlete. I mean, I played high school and college football, so I was not unfamiliar with the gym. But when I started wrestling, and that's the thing, is like, back in those days, you had some wrestlers that were, pretty, you know, muscled up. But by and large, it wasn't like a necessity. I mean, well, take, for example, the Funk Brothers. Dory Funk Jr. was a National Wrestling Alliance world champion. And he had a decent physique, but he didn't look like he was in the gym every day. And Terry, Terry a little bit more, but not, not muscle bound, and so there was just a lot of wrestlers that didn't, it's kind of like, okay, I've got to drive where today, and how many hours it's going to take to get there, and then I got to go from there to where, and in all of this, you want me to get in the gym too? Dick Murdoch, Dick Murdoch, was a great wrestler. And, he was famous for a big pot belly, a beer belly, but I don't know. I mean, I started working out, and again, I've always told people, I said, I was one of those guys who I never had at one time I had pretty good traps and a good chest, and but I've never had huge arms. I had big legs because I played, high school and college football. But none of that was like, I didn't ever have this sculptured look. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't want to. That to me, that wasn't a big deal. I mean, but I wanted to obviously look like an athlete, and to appease Vince, I got in the gym. So the rest is history.
And how many of our favorites over the years are not like huge body guys? You, Jake, even modern day wrestling, like a guy like CM Punk, he's not like a body guy. He doesn't have this great, super impressive body, but he's captivating in the ring. And really, that's probably the most important trait there is.
That's it.
Now, I know that food was catch as catch can out there on the road, but like when you would eat, are you watching? Are you being careful as you're eating? Because, you don't want to overload on carbs or anything like that. Or how does that go? Not so much.
I didn't even know what carbs and protein were then when I started. Oh, gosh. Yeah, no, I mean, what was my diet? Oh, well, a lot of truck stop food, a lot of cheeseburgers, and and of course I love Tex-Mex, man. I could eat Mexican food every day. I just, I love it, like, again, I grew up in the South and in Arizona, and was exposed to a lot of that. So I'm a big chicken and beef enchilada guy, but that was just, I mean, the nature of the beast back then. It's kind of like, number one, most guys, you can't really eat after maybe two or 3 o'clock at the latest, because, you're going to be in the ring in like within 4 to 5 hours, and you don't want to have a heavy stomach, and you don't want to take a chance of, blowing up in the ring and so, you try to eat early. And I don't know, that was, again, it was catch as catch can. If I was home, it might be different. I can't even remember then what I would do, but I ate a lot of burgers. I ate a lot of chicken. I ate a lot of, that truck stop food. I mean, I actually grew up on some of that. My grandmother owned a truck stop.
Oh, wow.
In Arizona.
All right, so that was familiar.
Yeah. Like one of my first jobs was I was the busboy.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Sure, busting them dishes, man.
Well, there you have it. You don't necessarily need to be eating nothing but chicken and turkey and all that stuff to be a pro wrestler. As long as you can get to the gym and you know how to work, you'll be fine.
Yeah, and of course, and the one thing that I would credit Ultimate Warrior for is, and because that was a big part of who he was, his body, his physique, and he did have a tremendous physique, and he was very dedicated, obviously, to the gym and probably what he ate. You would have to be to maintain that kind of physique, especially if you're now a wrestler and you're traveling like we traveled. So that wasn't easy for him to do. And so I give him credit for that.
Draybell is up next, and they ask, "What are your thoughts and memories on the late great Yokozuna? What did you think of him as a wrestling talent and as a person?"
Well, Yokozuna was a very likable guy. He was a very likable guy. I can't think anybody that had any huge issue with Yokozuna. Just a good, very, very good guy. And, again, for his size, he got around that ring pretty good.
Yes.
I mean, it's kind of like that was what impressed me was for his size, his mobility was, I would say, much better than any other person I had ever seen that was as big as him. He had really, I mean, he was really strong. I mean, he was obviously big and heavy and, but Yokozuna, and it's kind of like, it's like, well, I mean, I would compare that to like sumo wrestlers.
Mm-hmm.
Sumo wrestlers, they train them from birth almost. I mean, from very young age, and they get real big. But I tell you what, if you ever, you could probably make football players out of sumo wrestlers real easy, because you want to, when they say go, and they start pushing each other, it's unreal.
Yeah.
So anyway, good guy. Liked him very much.
Did you know that John Tenta was a sumo wrestler before he got into pro wrestling?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Pretty impressive guy.
Yeah, he was.
And so Jake tells a story about being backstage, and he and Haku decided to try each other in a friendly way in like a sumo style wrestling match in the locker room. Any chance you were present for that?
I missed it. I wish I'd have been there. What did Jake say about it?
Jake said everybody got the hell out of the way.
Well, yeah. Well, and again, I'll go this far. Haku was one of the nicest guys I ever met. He is, and he still is. I mean, he is still around. And when he first came, he came from the island of Tonga, and he went to Japan, and Japan sent him to the United States. So the first place he started wrestling, because the Funks booked most of the American wrestlers for All Japan Pro Wrestling, he came to Amarillo, and I was there. And so, I've known him for a very, very long time. Now, he wasn't as big as he got to be, and I remember this too. I remember you go your separate ways, and but friendly, and thank goodness that Haku is the nicest guy as he is. Because if he wanted to be a bully, I mean, if there was ever a guy that could be in a room all by himself just because he wanted to be, it would be him. He was one of the toughest son of a guns going, and I would never witnessed it, but I've heard some stories about some skirmishes he was in, and being outnumbered, but it didn't matter.
Yeah, I've heard stories that like people losing body parts when they get into a fight with Haku. Like he'll bite your nose off or pull your eye out. It's like, maybe not a guy to mess with.
Yeah, not a guy to mess with.
Teflon Man 23 asks, I think you had the greatest mic skills as a heel ever between you, Rick Rude, and Honky Tonk Man. Do you have a personal favorite between Rude and Honky Tonk Man?
Oh gosh, not really. I mean, both of those guys. I mean, I thought Rick was very good, and I mean, and Honky Tonk Man. I mean, based on again the gimmick, the Honky Tonk Man. He took that and like it was like I remember thinking, gosh, if I'd been wrestling and if I'd have gone to Vince and he'd have said, no, I'm going to make you the Honky Tonk Man, I wouldn't have been very happy about it. No, but I think he did a tremendous job. Yeah, I mean they played their parts very well.
So even with you being a massive Elvis fan, you wouldn't have been interested in the Honky Tonk Man character?
No, I don't think I could go there. No.
You got that great head of hair. I'm picturing you with like the long sideburns. I think this could have worked.
Well, here's the really funny thing is that my biological father was a professional singer.
Oh, perfect.
His name was Ted Wills, and he was a regular on the old Tennessee Ernie Ford show, which none of the fans would probably even remember. But he had this tremendous, beautiful, deep bass voice. And you know what? I have a deep bass voice, but I couldn't carry a tune if it had handles on it. Matter of fact, my wife Melanie gets mad at me in church because we're singing the church hymns, right? And she'll give me an elbow and she goes, Ted, you're tone deaf and your voice carries. Shut up.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Like, hey, he's got the Honky Tonk Man look. Can he sing? So there's our answer.
I couldn't sing.
I asked Jake this question as we're recording this. He and I recorded yesterday, as a matter of fact, and somebody wanted to know if he was offered big money in his prime to come up with a new gimmick for himself. So Vince comes to him and says, hey, want to change your gimmick? You can choose it. I'm going to give you a ton of money to be this character, but you need a strong character. And he was like, yeah, I don't know. I think I'd be like kind of a Charles Manson type character. And I'm like, oh, that would definitely work for you. Ted, I'll ask you the same question. Big money on the line. Vince is like, hey, I know the $1 Million Man thing has been great, but I want to change your gimmick. What character would you choose for yourself? Is there anything that sticks out?
What I like, in other words, I'm still a heel.
Still a heel, or you can be a baby face, but just like, pick a new, big, compelling, over the top character for yourself.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jake said Charles Manson.
He was like, he said he wanted to be called Uncle Charlie, and and he'd have like his stable of people, and he'd be like a cult leader. And I'm like, that actually really works for you. But what's funny, Ted, is before he and I had talked about that that I don't know if you're familiar with the faction, the Brood, which was a faction of vampires in the late 90s, and like Edge and Christian were in it, and Gangrel. And I was like, I could kind of see you being a vampire too. And he's like, I would love to play a vampire. So it's like he's between cult leader and vampire. Anything stick out for you?
Oh, well, man, wow.
It's a tough one, I know, because you really got to kind of self-analyze, like what would work for me.
What would work for me? Got a deep voice. Take advantage of my voice, and I don't know. Maybe a wolf man.
So you and Jake both went like supernatural. I like it. So like you would transform. I can picture it. You like climb under the ring, and they have some prosthetics down there for you, and you come out and you're a wolf now. There you go. We just hit a home run.
Oh gosh, oh man, I don't know. That's I never gave that.
Well, You nailed it on the first try. You're a
Yeah.
wolf man. That's the new gimmick.
The Wolfman. I used to love those movies when I was a little kid.
Like Lon Chaney Jr.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, and he was the best. He was the best Wolfman of all, and he was the first. And I tell you what, it was like my parents got to where they wouldn't let me watch the movies because I would like. I remember after watching one of those movies, like the Wolfman, it's like the top of his head, because of the way the hair was just kind of like, well, kind of like this, but bushier, right?
Yeah.
So I remember as a kid, I'm being put to bed. I'm going to bed, and I got a nightlight. Well, the reflection of the nightlight in my room on the headboard, it made a shadow on the ceiling that looked like that.
The Wolfman's head.
Like just the top of the Wolfman's head. As you're a little kid like that, oh my gosh, he's at the foot of my bed. He's going to get me.
So your parents,
and I go running to my mom and my dad, and they go, "That's it. No more scary movies for you, pal."
Well, it's a perfect tie-in for your new character. I'm gonna make some calls and see if I can get you booked on the indies as the Wolfman. All right, up next we've got Calvin, who asks, who had the best working punch? Anybody stick out for you?
Me.
You.
And actually, I've had a lot of guys have just other guys in the business have said that to me. You throw a real good working punch, and I would say I copied guys like Dick Murdoch, Terry Funk, those guys. But that was one of those things that I would practice. I would stand in front of a wall, and I would, put my fist on the wall, and so I'm this far away, I'm arm's length away from the wall, and then I would practice by, throwing the punch and just barely hitting the wall.
Did you ever really crack the wall and hurt your hand?
No, I didn't.
All right. What a pro.
So yeah, I don't know, but I appreciate. Yeah.
I've heard your name come up in that conversation a lot too. You, Terry Funk, Jake, and actually Jake said I have the best working punch too. So he feels the same way. Now what about the stiffest working punch, Ted? Who would hit you with it and you'd be like, "Whew, boy, this guy brings it every time."
Well, nobody ever hit me with a working punch real hard. I mean, I'm not trying to think. Well, if anybody did, they only did it once. Because in the business, there's a thing called the receipt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you screw up like that, then expect the receipt. And, I can't remember.
Now, there were a couple of older guys in the business. Two names stand out for me that were like notoriously rough. They don't mean anything by it. That's just how they wrestle. One is Stan Hansen and one is Wahoo McDaniel. Now, I know that you've been in the ring with Stan Hansen. When Stan would hit you, I know that he would bring it, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, not in a. Okay, it would be. Yeah, I was Stan's tag team partner.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of like sometimes, like it's like if Stan was he was stiff, but I mean, in Japan, I think that was just part of the way they worked there.
Okay.
They were a little snugger than most, and like, throwing chops, especially throwing chops and stuff. But yeah. Yeah.
Now, when you came into Japan, were you aware that that was going to happen, or when you first come over there, is it like, did you think these guys were taking some liberties with you?
Well, no, I didn't. I never thought that. I mean, I just, I was just told. They said they work snug, and so I'm okay with snug. I mean, as long as you're not, not as long as you're not hitting me hard enough that you're gonna, give me a black eye or something like that.
Yeah.
But just snug is snug, and that's snug is fine with me. Some guys don't like snug. I just don't, like just barely want to feel you. It's like, yeah, well, if you want that, go find a broad.
That's it. Snug looks good on camera too.
Yeah.
So yeah, just don't hit me in the mouth or the nose. Well, so I brought up Wahoo McDaniel there. That's probably not a name we're gonna get to talk about a lot here. Did you ever get to work with Wahoo?
I never got to work with Wahoo. I saw him work. I met him, thought he was a great guy, but I never had the opportunity to get in the ring with him. Yeah.
How about that? I always just assumed that everybody from that era you would cross paths with at some point and probably stepped into the ring with, but that's when you just missed.
And I saw Wahoo. I mean, I remember. I think there was one day I came over to Murdoch's house and Wahoo was sitting on the couch. And he was there for I don't know who he was working with, but I met him, liked him. I don't think anybody could say anything bad about Wahoo, but I mean, it's like everybody knew if you work with him, he's snug.
Yeah, unanimously liked, but also pretty much as you just said, everybody who's worked with him over the years says like love the guy, but
Yeah.
boy did he bring it on those chops.
Yeah.
Walt Temmer is up next. What TV shows are you watching? Any recommendations?
What TV shows? Oh gosh, TV shows. Well, I watch a lot of movies. I don't get into the sitcoms too much. I just the daytime, like the daytime television, like the General Hospital, all that. That couldn't interest me at all. I enjoy like oh gosh, what is it? America's Got Talent.
Okay.
I like to watch that. I'm trying to think of another one that's not like that, but similar in some ways.
Like The Voice.
The Voice, yeah. I like watching The Voice. I really like The Voice because they, and The Voice has produced some real big, they've produced some people that came through that show have gone on to have enormous careers, which is pretty cool. But yeah, it's stuff like that. That's, but for me, I'm a movie guy. My wife, she says, Ted, she goes, if you want to watch a movie, you go watch your war movies while I'm gone so we can watch something else when I'm here. I like war movies. I like shoot 'em ups.
Now, any in particular stick out as like a personal favorite?
Oh gosh. Man.
Like a Saving Private Ryan or some of the older ones?
Okay, like this was just recently on TV, and I remember seeing that as a young boy, The Alamo.
Oh, great one.
Yeah, with John Wayne. And it's the first time, and I was a little kid, and it's the first time I ever saw John Wayne get killed. He didn't get killed in any other movie, and he got killed in The Alamo. So that that was one of them. Oh gosh, Pearl Harbor. The real story of Pearl Harbor. That's that one intrigued me. The ones that are pretty much like world. Oh my gosh.
Saving Private Ryan.
Yes. That
That's a
was
good
a
one.
very good movie. A very, very, very good movie. Yeah. There was a movie on Top Gun.
Ah, yeah.
Top Gun was one of my favorite movies, and the sequel to Top Gun was, in my opinion, just as good, if not better.
Wow.
And I think they're talking about making another one.
I haven't seen the sequel, but I love the first one.
Yeah, you haven't seen the sequel?
I have not seen it yet.
Oh, you got to see it, man.
I'm gonna have to check it out. I like old movies like with John Wayne and stuff too. I love Rio Bravo,
Yeah.
John Wayne and Dean Martin. I actually met Angie Dickinson at one point, and I was like, "Hey, I loved you in Rio Bravo." She was like, "You know?" She's like, "How old are you? You know Rio Bravo?" I'm like, "I loved it."
What was
Yeah,
that? Yeah, it says, well, let me tell you, Pilgrim, John Wayne.
that's a great impression. You're a man of many impressions. I'm coming to learn.
Yeah. That's the road, the American dream. Twisted feel and sex appeal. I'm funky like a monkey, if you will.
Who would you say is your best impression? Is it Dusty?
Yeah, probably.
That's good.
I love the dream, man.
Next up, we've got, well, actually, it's my brother Dominic wanted to ask one. He asks, where would Ted have liked to progress the $1 Million Man identity if he had creative control? So that's kind of a wide range question. I'll narrow it down a little bit. Ted, if the $1 Million Man would have been in the WWF during the Attitude Era with like Steve Austin running around and The Rock and Triple H, do you think he would have fit in during that time?
The Attitude Era. Well, yeah, but he would, and as opposed to the, I think he would have had to have been a much more, like the evil businessman.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I got a deal for you, pal. And then shove it to him.
Yeah, I can almost see the $1 Million Man in like a commissioner role or something during that period of time where he's just like crooked, like willing to take payoffs and stuff. I think that could have worked.
Yeah, yeah.
Steve DeBoer, I guess is how you say it. What was it like having Chuck Norris be part of the casket match between Undertaker and Yokozuna at Survivor Series? Did you get any interaction with Chuck?
Well, I met him, and had an opportunity to chat with him a little bit. I mean, again, uh, like us, brother, he shares the same faith and is a very strong believer.
Mm.
And so that was interesting to find out.
Wow, how about that? I didn't know that he was a man of faith, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
Um, Jim Duggan recently shared a photo on his social media of him with Muhammad Ali back in 1985 with Mid-South Wrestling. Were you there that night at the Superdome?
I think I was. And it
That was
was,
the night that he punched Jake, if that rings a bell for you. Muhammad did.
yeah. Yeah. I want to say I saw him somewhere else too.
I know that he was like around WCW on a few occasions, but I don't know if he would have been around during the period that you were there.
Oh gosh.
But you've definitely met Muhammad Ali at some point.
Yes, and I even think I have an autograph, but I can't remember where it is.
That's a great one to have, though. Greatest boxer of all time.
Oh yeah. Dang. That's going to bug me now, Marcus. I'm going to have to dig that thing up. Anyway, I didn't. I wasn't like an autograph collector, but the few that I have are pretty cool.
What other autographs do you have, or like hold close?
I have a baseball signed by Mickey Mantle.
Whoa,
Yeah.
That is a great one.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was at a, I'm trying to think, you know who Walter Payton is.
Yeah.
Well, Walter Payton and his brother and I, we've been on hunting trips together because they live here. And, and Walter's brother, Eddie Payton, also played pro football. I think he was a kickoff return guy. And I want to say for the Minnesota Vikings. I'm not sure, but Eddie Payton played golf. Eddie Payton was the golf coach at Jackson State University. And he said, man, you need to start playing golf. So he gave me a few lessons, and then he got me to this, a celebrity golf tournament. And I actually played in a few of them because, it's all the proceeds go to some charity.
Yeah.
But anyway, at one of these golf tournaments, Mickey Mantle was there. And, and somebody threw me a ball, and I was sitting and said, Mick, would you mind signing this for me? And he signed it.
How about that?
Yeah, that's one to hang on to.
Well, pretty cool. Mickey Mantle and Muhammad Ali, arguably the two best in their sports ever. So,
Yeah.
man, badass autographs. All right, Ted, we'll do two more and then I'll let you go, brother. Wesley Moore asks, which wrestlers from your era were a hard day at the office and which were like a day off? So anybody you like just absolutely dreaded having to step into the ring with, like, oh, this guy's going to be brutal.
Well, let's go. The day off guys would be like, especially guys who helped shape my career. Terry Funk, Dory Funk Jr. I would say Stan, but Stan was not so much. Stan was more my partner than somebody who influenced my style or anything like that. Oh my gosh. The Funks in a huge way made a difference. Dick Murdoch, again, these are guys that were the generation more or less just ahead of me that helped shape my career. Like I said, Dick Murdoch, a guy, Killer Carl Cox.
Mm-hmm.
You're all Killer Carl Cox in my estimation. And I think was one of the greatest heels of all time.
Wow.
I mean, he could do it all. He could do it all. And he and Murdoch had one of the greatest feuds that I've ever witnessed in terms of, and they did it while they were working for Bill Watts in Mid-South. They were just great.
So when you say that these guys were like a day off, is it because they're like, they're kind of managing the match?
Well, like a day off means I don't have to worry about anything. It's like, and it's not so much. It's kind of like if I wrestled Jake, that'd be a day off because we both come from the same side, the same, what do you call it?
Mentality
of the same. We both believe in the same psychology of wrestling and how it is and how it works. And so for us to work together sometimes it's like, sometimes it's, obviously there is some communication between us in the match. He'd call a spot or I'd call a spot. And there's sometimes it would just be body, it's kind of like, for example, just a simple one. If he were to hit me with a shot and I turned around and grabbed my jaw and started walking towards, stumbling towards the corner, well, then Jake would just come up behind me and grab my hair and run my head into the turnbuckle. And with that, a lot of times I would then turn around and open up. I'm still selling, but I'm leaning with my back in the corner. There's an opportunity for him to gut punch me, to chop me, whatever, turnbuckle me. But a lot of that, that's an easy night. Now, a hard night would be wrestling somebody. You have to hold their hand the whole match, and I can't think of anybody off the top of my head like that. I'm sure there've been several, but it's kind of like. Well, the Ultimate Warrior. Here's a guy who was making the big money, and he was totally dependent on whoever was in the ring with him to call the match because he couldn't.
And so when you're out in the ring with a guy like that, you're probably literally grabbing him and pulling him where you want him to be at times.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, it is.
Recently, a video of you surfaced on Twitter where you and actually Bryant Haremza is the guy who shared it with me. It's you in this video wrestling a young Shawn Michaels while you're in Mid-South when Shawn Michaels was an enhancement talent. And so it makes me wonder, Ted, even that early on, a young Shawn Michaels, were you like, boy, this kid can go? Or what was it like working with him at that age?
Well, I mean, he was real young. I mean, he was like brand new, and it was kind of like he was, very quiet in the dressing room. That all changed. But Shawn, I mean, it's kind of like you got it or you don't. You can see it, and you can see it in him. It's kind of like, okay, you're a rookie now, but you're gonna go places.
Okay, guys, let's hit the pause button on the show real quick to talk about our fantastic sponsor. Of course, I'm talking about the guys that we all know and love. We're talking about Blue Chew. Ever since we started talking about Blue Chew here on Everybody's Got a Pod, the question keeps coming up from people, does Blue Chew work? Well, look, if you're asking that question, we want you to know that Blue Chew is putting their money where their mouth is by giving you a month for free. Guys, Blue Chew is an online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but at a fraction of the cost and in a chewable form. The process is simple. All you've got to do is sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. Blue Chew tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped directly to your door. And if you want to know the best part, here it is. It's all done online. So what that means is you can forget about all the visits to the doctor's office. You can forget about having to have those awkward conversations, or how about the worst part, waiting in line at the pharmacy. Skip all of it with a little help from Blue Chew. You can take them anytime, day or night, so that you can plan ahead or be ready when an opportunity arises. And what do you stand to lose? You can try it for free for a month, and we think that you're going to love it and your partner's going to love it. You could be missing out on the best sex of your life without even knowing it, just because you haven't given this a shot. It's a free service. Why not just try it? And if you don't like it, okay, forget it. You don't have to try it ever again. We always say that first impressions are important, but how about lasting impressions? Build up your confidence with Blue Chew, and they're giving you confidence where it counts the very most. Guys, Blue Chew wants men rock hard. That's what they tell me. That's their mission. They will not stop until every man is bricked up like a brick house, till every tent is pitched, till every rod is raised. Discover your options right now at BlueChew.com. And guys, we've got a special deal for you, our listeners. Again, you can try Blue Chew free. All you've got to do is use our promo code EGAP at checkout, and then just pay $5 shipping. That's it. Just go to BlueChew.com, use our promo code EGAP to receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we want to thank Blue Chew for sponsoring Everybody's Got a Pod. All right, man, you ready to jump into these?
I'm ready. Let's go. Fire when ready.
All right, here we go. First up, we've got Clint Allerton, who asks, when you did your vignettes, did you have a script to go by? Such as when you received your $1 million belt, you went way over the top with describing the belt. It was awesome. Virgil was in the background, not even cracking a smile, which made it even better. Anyways, did anyone tell you what to say, or was it all from the hip?
You know, the way I always did everything is kind of like because everything became so scripted. I said, you can give me the script, but I'm not going to, I'm going to read the script to give me the basic idea of what you want here, but I'm going to do it my way. It's going to come out and it's going to sound like the $1 Million Man, as everybody knew me. And so that's usually the way I did things like that. And I never had any problem with it. So yeah, it's kind of like, they gave me an idea and they told me again, be way over the top about describing how beautiful the belt was and all that stuff. And I think I did a pretty good job.
It's crazy to see that stuff because we hear about actors who like even they, if anything goes wrong, they want their script to be just so, and no real ability to improvise. But here you are, you're just a wrestler, but you guys are entertainers, and
Yeah.
you can take it to the next level. It's pretty incredible stuff.
Well, and that's one of the things that Vince liked about me. He says, Ted, you're very articulate. He says you come across, very well. And so that's a gift. That's just a gift from doing interviews, the old school way for so long. It's like, in the body of wrestling, it's okay. What's I would say, okay, what are the people seeing? What's the last thing that people saw in the arena? And now kind of like just as an example, let's say that I'm having a match like with Jake, and I keep sliding out of the ring and leaving and rolling back in to break the count, and then and then basically and maybe just even walking away, and they count me out. So Jake wins. But he wins by what? By default, right?
Mhm.
So Jake then will come back and he says, okay, DiBiase, you ran last time like a dog. He says, but this time you're not going to be able to run because there's going to be a cage up around the ring. And of course, being the heel that I am, I rant and rave and throw a fit about that because that's the last thing I want, right? And so there's that gives you an idea. And then I would just roll with that. And anyway.
And week to week, yeah, you can make that part of your story and part of your promos. And what else is cool, for me as I go back and watch all of your footage for research and stuff. It's interesting because I grew up on the $1 Million Man, like so many other fans, and
Yeah.
I got to see you as everybody calls it, a chicken shit heel, where it's like you're begging off, and I saw that version of Ted DiBiase. Now, as I'm getting to watch your stuff in Georgia and Mid-South, I'm like, so Ted wasn't always the chicken shit heel. Sometimes you were the badass heel, and it was pretty fun stuff.
Yeah. But here's the thing: when you're the chicken shit heel, it never ends. It's like the people never get tired of seeing somebody kick your ass.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's just it. It's kind of like a bully. That's what I was. I was like a bully. It's like I told my boys when they were very young, I said, you're going to run into people in life. And he says, you're going to, and I said, 99% of all the bullies you see are cowards.
Yep.
And he says, they talk real big, but if you go ahead and confront them and tell them, okay, you know what? You want a piece of me? Let's go. Then they start backing down because they really don't want to go. They just want to appear to be what they are. And so, and it's like, and my dad said that too. He says, and he said, son, here's the deal. If, a lot of times they'll just back down. If they don't back down and you get in a fight, you'll either win the fight or you might get your butt kicked. He says, but that bully's never going to bother you again. And I said, why? He says, because he knows you're willing to fight.
Yep.
There it is.
But it is funny, because I think you've talked about this before on the show where you said like the chicken shit heel, nobody's ever gonna like a chicken shit heel. They're always gonna be a heel. Nobody wants to root for that guy. But when you're a badass heel, it's like I saw that promo where you were talking to Tommy Rich about being Mr. R, and you said, not only am I gonna take that mask off, I'm gonna take your head off with it. When I heard that line, I was like, that's a pretty cool line. Like, I like this guy. I don't
Yeah.
care that he's mean. He's fun, and that's how like Stone Cold got over. So yeah, it's
Well,
interesting.
and that's the deal. And like Stone Cold was. I mean, he was a kick-ass heel.
Mm-hmm.
But again, if you're a kick-ass, this is the truth. If you're a kick-ass heel, ultimately you're going to be a babyface because everybody loves a tough guy. Everybody loves somebody who stands up for what they believe and doesn't back down from anything. And so, you might start off being a bully, but again, if you're the chicken shit heel, then like nobody gets tired of seeing that guy get his ass kicked. But when you're like the Stone Cold, kind of heel, like you talk big and you back it up. Well, that again, and what happened to Stone Cold? Eventually, the fans turned him babyface.
Yep.
So
the fans will never turn you if you're being a coward and backing off all the time.
No.
I like it. Alex,
and that's the best kind of heel to be. It really is.
I absolutely agree. Stone Cold made an awful lot of money after being the badass heel, but I don't think he was ever really a heel to begin with. If you kind of look back at it, kind of like Jake, where like Jake was a badass heel. The fans turned him, but when he was a babyface, he was still doing heel shit, like pulling a snake out of a bag and degrading a guy after you beat him is a pretty heel move, but he did it all the time.
Yeah, but by that time he had endeared himself to the crowd.
Yep.
Now the fans were wanting to see him put the snake on somebody. Put that snake on that heel.
Man, it's good stuff. Alex Littleton is up next. If you could be a wrestler in your prime in any era, which era would you choose and who would you feud with? So, Ted, a lot of folks will ask you who you would wrestle from today's wrestling, but what if you could wrestle anybody from absolutely any era?
Oh my gosh, I'm trying to think of somebody that I admired enough, but never really got the chance to work with them. That's hard. Like one of the guys. This way. I only had one match with Ricky Steamboat.
That's it.
But Ricky Steamboat was one of the best performers I ever worked with. I would have loved to have had an ongoing storyline with Ricky Steamboat because he was so good. He was that good. But I'm just if I think of something, I'll regurgitate it.
Like names that jump off to me, would be guys like, as you said, from kind of like the older generation, like a guy like, did you ever work with Killer Kowalski or Danny Hodge or anybody like that?
Well, no, I never worked with Kowalski, but I did wrestle Danny Hodge.
How was that?
And Danny was great. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, Danny Hodge, legitimately. I mean, he had. I mean, the thing about Danny Hodge. You give him an apple, and he can crush it in his hands. Give him a brand new pair of pliers, and he can snap them. I mean, he had this unbelievable strength, and they said something about extra tendons or something in his wrist.
Yep.
But I mean, it wasn't a work. It was legit. And so he's a guy that I got to work with, but. I was kind of like, he's the one guy you don't want to piss off.
And he wasn't a huge guy either, was he?
No, he wasn't. He wasn't very big, and he was a national amateur champion in wrestling.
That's a bad dude.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, and when you looked at Danny Hodge, you'd say, "Oh man, that guy couldn't break a stick." Yeah, well, he could break your arm.
Boy, if he snatched you up, you'd be in a
Yeah,
lot of trouble. And what's cool is there's footage out there, I think it's on YouTube, of him even as like an older man, somebody hands him an apple and he just pulps it. And it's like this old guy just like he just grabs an apple and just
yeah.
obliterates it. It's like, oh my gosh, that's
And
still a guy.
one of the nicest guys you'd ever meet too. You
Yep.
know, thank God.
All right. So actually, Hugh Chambers has got a related question that I put here. So we'll see if there's another kind of related answer here. He says, "What's a match Ted had that fans might be surprised to know about?" So Ted, as we discussed, you've worked with guys from over the years, many different eras, all kinds of different walks of life. So do any in particular stand out as especially interesting? Like, did you wrestle somebody that maybe fans would be surprised to hear about, like a Buddy Rogers or somebody like that?
Okay. Remember JJ Dillon?
Yeah.
Okay, JJ Dillon, I mean, most fans remember him as a manager.
Yes.
Correct. But the first time I saw JJ Dillon, he was a wrestler. And he was a heel, and he was a heck of a heel. And I probably had one of my very first matches in this little bit, kind of a little side angle with him in a place called San Angelo. I was a referee, and I was refereeing a match between him and somebody and Terry and Dory Funk Jr. And they did the Funks win and they leave, and then Dylan goes off on me, and then that now I'm gonna get in the ring with this guy, 1-on-1, and that was pretty scary thing. But I mean, he was so good in terms of, like I had just been a referee. I grew up in the business, but and respected the business so much. It's like, the last thing I want to do is screw up. And, he guided me through a match. We had a match, and it ended up where the Funks, came out to my aid, and it left me looking good, and it didn't take any heat off him. It actually put more heat on him. So, but yeah, he was one of those guys that most people only ever knew him as a manager. But, back in those days when I first started in the business in 75, 74, 75, JJ Dillon was he was kind of like a cowboy.
How about that?
Yeah.
Interesting to picture him as a cowboy, but not, I've heard from a couple guys, maybe I want to say Aaron Anderson said that he's one of the greatest bump takers you've ever seen. He said even when he was a manager, he was just a bumping machine.
Yeah. Yeah. And on the same, and a great guy, I mean, personality, just great.
Higher Primate is up next. He says, "What do you think are the top worst real injuries that you have seen during your wrestling career?" So not necessarily that you got, but that you've witnessed.
Oh my gosh. It's like nothing comes to mind. So I obviously didn't ever see anything that was so horrible. It was entrenched in my mind forever.
You never saw anybody kind of get their arm rolled over on or grab their knee or anything awful like that?
I just can't. No, I can't. I'm sorry, guys. I can't think of any.
Well, hey, that's a good thing, man.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah.
You don't need to be seeing any scarring shit while you're out there just trying to work. Have you ever seen the footage of Sid breaking his leg in WCW? This would have been in early 2001.
Was I there?
You were not with the company anymore, but I mean, this is one of those videos. It's so nasty that it's made the rounds on the internet forever.
Well,
Where
okay. You know what? I have seen that, but I wasn't there to see it.
okay, you saw the
But
clip.
I have seen the footage, and it's like, oh, that's ugly.
Oh gosh, what easily the worst injury I've ever seen in the
Yeah,
ring. And I've watched an awful lot of wrestling footage over the
yeah.
years. Holy smokes, man, just awful. All right, the Mauve Maniac asks, did WWE ever think of putting you and Mr. Perfect together as a team? That would have been a great team.
I don't know. I don't. That was never discussed.
Man, that could have worked.
Yeah, that could have been a good team.
Do you know if you ever step like even when he was Kurt Hennig, did you ever step in the ring with him or never?
No,
Wow.
no. Yeah, and but oh yeah. I mean, like me though, a special blonde only because we were again like two guys who both came from a wrestling family. Like Henning, Jake, and I can't think of anybody else right off the top of my head. Romero. You remember the Romeros?
The name rings a bell.
Yeah. Now there was Ricky Romero was a very famous Mexican wrestler in Amarillo, but it's like he just stayed there. He never left Amarillo, and because of that, I mean, as good as he was, he just didn't want to move. But going somewhere else would have made him more money and what have you. But he just stayed in Amarillo, and he was a good-looking guy, and he had sons that followed him. But there's one son that followed him. His name was Steve, and Steve and I were friends. Matter of fact, I think the first couple times I got in the ring and started to learn how to take bumps and stuff, I was with Steve in Amarillo, and actually, there's the sports arena where they held the wrestling matches. That's until the only time that it wasn't specifically for wrestling was when the fair came to town, and they would move the ring out of there and they would put stuff in there. But the rest of the time, the Amarillo Sports Arena was, because that ring was permanent. It was up all the time. And so we went in there a couple of times with nobody else in it or around. And I started to learn how to take the bumps and stuff with Steve.
How about that?
Yeah.
Now, I did want to ask you too about Kurt Hennig, because he's hailed as one of those guys who's just this incredible ring technician. I've heard you mention Ricky Steamboat and Bret Hart as being these guys that are, just next level guys you would have loved to have had a program with. If you had to choose one of the three, program with Hennig, Hart, or Steamboat, who's your selection?
Probably Steamboat.
Wow.
Yeah. Probably Steamboat. He was just that good. I mean, watching him, and I admired his work, like as a guy, watching another wrestler, I admired his work from afar. And then when we actually had that opportunity, I mean, we tore the house down. We didn't go out there, and it was kind of like, even today, it's like, and I don't want to take anything away from, there are some guys, and I haven't really, because I don't watch regularly, and I don't because I get upset because it's so poor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but there are a couple of guys, now coming along that, that show a lot of potential. And they're the top guys. But here's my point: when I watch these guys on TV, it's not a story like we told stories. You know what I'm saying? It was like every match was a story. It might be a short story, but it was a story nonetheless. Now I see guys just getting in the ring and bouncing all over the ring. I mean, taking a turnbuckle and, backdrop and give up, and they go backwards out of the ring over the top rope, and they hit the floor and they jump up like a bunny, like nothing's happened to them. They get back in the ring.
If that's not going to hurt you, then how can the fans believe that somebody's finishing maneuver is going to hurt you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's the guys look more like they're having a tumbling match.
You know, hearing you talk about Steamboat also made me think about he and Ric Flair had these classic matches in 1989 with WCW, and man, it would have been really cool to see you in a position to have a series of matches with Steamboat and build a story with him.
Well, and again, and Rick, Rick and I only got to wrestle each other a couple of times, now I think at one time I know he was the NWA World Champion.
I know you guys worked in Mid-South.
Worked in Mid-South, and I think we did an hour Broadway. He was the champ, and I was the top guy, and I don't know if I was a babyface then or not. But him being, I probably was a babyface, because usually the only place that the NWA champion was a babyface was in his home territory, like Dory Funk Jr. and Terry. In all the other territories they were heels, but when they were back in the Amarillo territory, they were baby faces, and they would work with the top heel.
Man, well, one of these days we're gonna watch the Ric Flair match here on the show, and it's
I'm sorry I forgot to mention Rick. Oh my gosh, are you kidding? He's right up there with Steamboat.
Something special.
Absolutely.
Who's scoring big this NBA season? You are, with all the new ways to get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. From monster slams to dishing the rock to cleaning the glass, get behind your favorite players and the prop bets you can make at DraftKings, the home of NBA player props. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet just $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Take it to the rack with DraftKings Sportsbook, because every point counts. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code EGAP. That's code EGAP for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/bball. All right, Ad-Free Show's researcher and my friend Andrew Hermes has two questions. Whose idea was it to change the outfitting of the $1 Million Man, meaning from the traditional black and white and green suits? Can you tell us about the designer?
They had one suit made for me, and it was okay. It wasn't really well done, but it had all of the ingredients. Of the look, big dollar sign on the back and everything. But I found somebody else. I found somebody local, and showed them what I had, and told them what I wanted. And the next suits, and everything after that looked really good. And I think, I had black and gold. I had a green and whatever. I even think I had a silver.
Yeah.
And
the white one, which I think you still have in your possession, right?
I had a white and gold one, and I wore it at when we did Wembley.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I can't remember wearing it too much, because it's kind of like, it was a really good looking suit, but bad guys don't look good in white.
That's true. That's true. I never even put that together.
Yeah.
And actually, they just released a new action figure of you in the white suit, which is go and pick one up and bring it to Ted. He'll sign it for you at one of his signings. And Ted, when you first arrived with the WWF, and they say like, "Hey, yeah, here's a suit. You're going to be wearing this to the ring, probably taking bumps in it occasionally, stuff like that." How did you feel about it? Were you like, "Oh man, I got to wear a hot suit in this arena?"
Well, I mean, the deal about the suit was the only time it's like I wore it. It was kind of like instead of like a ring jacket, I had a ring suit.
Mm-hmm.
And I would wear that into the ring. And the deal was, Virgil was always there, and he would take the top coat off. And I had and the front was it wasn't a full shirt. It was just like just around the neck, and I'd pop that off, and then he would take the front, and the pants were hemmed all the way down, and so he would just pop the pants off of me too. So there I was. With my tights on with great big dollar signs on them.
Boy, that would have been the spot for the Blue Chew ad right there. Did you have to travel with this suit as well?
Oh yeah, it went everywhere I did, and I got to where I could pack it, and the material was made out. It was flexible enough that it wouldn't stay, like wrinkled, if you will.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so it wasn't that hard. I just packed it in a big bag.
Now, like, you're wearing this suit, and you're not wearing a shirt, so I'd imagine that you sweat into this thing. How often were you getting it cleaned? How did you get it cleaned?
I mean, all I did to, obviously whatever I had on the road, and at any given time, I wore it every night to the ring, just like a guy would wear his ring jacket.
Yeah.
The suit was my ring jacket, and so then after, like back when we were doing, when it got to be 10 on, 3 off, 4 on, 3 off. Well, every time I'd go home, I would send one to the cleaners, and I would take a different one with me.
Andrew's got another question. He said, "Do you believe there was a time in your career when you were a better heel than when you worked with Hogan? If so, when and where was it? Or was your best heel work, do you feel it was when you were feuding with Hogan?"
I mean, working with Hogan, I mean, I adapted to his style, and that's what a good heel does.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I couldn't have a Ricky Steamboat match with Hulk Hogan. And because of his persona and all of that, I worked his fashion, and I worked, and had no trouble with him, and he really enjoyed working with me as well, because that was it. It's kind of like I would get really good heat on him. I would obviously put over all his strength and power out and all that stuff at the beginning of the match, and then I would cut him off and get real good heat on him, and then let him start hulking up, as they call it, and make that big comeback on me and beat me. A good heel had to be capable of adapting to whoever he's working with. Now, and I never had to have a match with Andre the Giant. I mean, Andre and I ended up being, he was my tag team partner. Now, I will say this, okay, me and Andre, we're a heel team, but in the course of a match, because Andre is who he was, and he was so big, well, who was going to take most of the bumps? Me.
Yep.
Who was going to do most of the flying around the ring? When it came to the baby faces doing their big comeback, that would have to be me. And that was okay with me, because I was Andre's partner, and I was getting paid very well for that.
Pretty good spot to be in, getting a team up with Andre.
Yeah.
And certainly better than working against him, especially you as a heel, because it's, how do you get heat on a guy that's that size? That's a hell of a challenge.
Yeah, but again, to Andre's credit, I have seen him in matches where where he did, and he could sell. You know, it was kind of like you would get him. You know, you would put over all of his power and stuff, and you know, like you lock up with him, and he just shoves you off like a fly, and you hit the turnbuckle, and then you come back and you try it again, and he just, you know, and you know, and just like you get it, you back up in the corner, and the referee says break, and you know him, and then you try to turnbuckle him, and he won't even come out of the turn, and then he takes you and reverses it. You go into the end of the turnbuckle, and you come back out, and he hits you with a big clothesline or backdrop or whatever. You know, you eventually do something where, you know, he goes to throw you a clothesline, and you duck under it and come behind him and hit him like at the bend of his knee from behind. Well, that makes him go to a knee. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So now he's the giant, but he's down on one knee. And then you get him to where he's on both his knees. Now he's on his knees, and because he's Andre the Giant, you're not exactly, you know, face to face, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now you got him in a position where you can now you can do something to him.
You've got him vulnerable.
Yeah.
Interesting. Ted, did you ever hear the whole thing about Vince not wanting to call it pro wrestling on TV, or call his workers wrestlers? He always referred to them as sports entertainers or superstars, and he would call the product sports entertainment. So
yeah,
have you heard of that? And what do you make of it?
Yeah, that's the way he was. And you know, he always wanted to be something like more acceptable. It's kind of like wrestling is the bastard child of the entertainment industry,
mm-hmm.
right? Wrestling, you know, circus act, right? Yeah. Well, no, you know, and that's what Vince was trying to do, was make wrestling more acceptable. And that's why he went and said, you know, don't call it this, don't call it that. You know, it's a sports entertainment.
Now, the other thing about Vince that I've been hearing is that whenever somebody is on commentary and Vince would be on the headset, if he heard you use a pronoun, refer to a wrestler as he or him or her, he did not like it. He wanted you to call them, like if you're calling a match with Razor Ramon, you say Razor Ramon getting covered by Shawn Michaels. You don't say, oh, Shawn Michaels is covering him. You know what I mean? Did you ever hear that?
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I get that, you know, like he's doing this or no, who's doing that, you know?
Got to be specific.
Yeah,
I kind of get it too. And look, you know, a lot of people criticize it and say, "Oh, Vince hates wrestling and he doesn't like that he's involved in wrestling. He wants to make it something else." However, he did make it something else. He made it one of the biggest entertainment properties in the world. So,
well, thank you. Exactly, yeah. He did make it something. You know, it was kind of like, and. You know, and I've thought about that myself. I said, you know, if Vince had not come along and did what he did, you know, I think pro wrestling would have died, because there is so many other things competing for the entertainment dollar. Vince made wrestling into something that was, you know, bigger than life.
He did. And, you know, I think a lot of people hear that and they're like, I wouldn't have died. The territories would have continued. Well,
no.
What would have happened, do you think, in the 90s, instead of getting that giant boom that we got in pro wrestling where, you know, merchandise was everywhere. Everybody got to see it all the time. It was, you know, guys were getting movie work, stuff like that. Now you're talking about regional territories. I think they would have died off. I think people would have lost interest in television.
Exactly. And that's what would have happened. Kid you not, that's what would have happened. That's where wrestling would have gone, because, you know, back in that, you know, again, when I got into wrestling, and, you know, like, okay, you were getting to be where you had more, my first memory of television, there were 3 channels: ABC, NBC, and CBS, and those were the only 3 channels you had. And then later, you got few more channels. But now, oh my gosh. I mean, it's like Katie bar the door, select what you want. But again, in the scheme of things, where would wrestling have landed in there?
Hard to say. I mean, it may not have.
It
Period.
was, it was kind of like, it's, and when you look back at, when you go and you look at some of the taped wrestling shows that we did in studios and compare that to the shows Vince put on, where you've got a coliseum full of fans instead of like there's two rows of there's two sets of bleachers. You got to, and the camera's over here, and all your fans are in those two sets of bleachers.
Yep.
There's maybe 70 or 100 people in this little studio when you're doing your TV show. Well, that would have died. It'd have been gone.
No question.
No question.
I think a good way to look at what wrestling would have become if it had not become a big part of mainstream entertainment is look at the circus. The circus used to be a really big thing back in the day where families would plan around it and they would go out and see it. And yep, circuses still exist and they're still a thing. They're not anywhere near as big as they used to be because now you get to see that stuff on TV. You can see animals on TV or on YouTube or whatever. I think that yep, wrestling would probably still exist, but it wouldn't be making any money, and it would be very, very small and very sporadic as to when and how you could see it.
Yeah. Well, and I guess I would liken that to some of these independent wrestling organizations. There's I don't know how many there are, but I mean, somebody goes out and buys a ring and gets a bunch of guys, and all of a sudden he's promoting wrestling when he doesn't personally know what the hell he's doing.
Right. And that's the other thing.
Yeah, little shows like that. No.
And yeah, it's the popularity of the WWF helped independent wrestling because look, I don't think a lot of kids are asking their parents to go see independent wrestling unless they're getting really entertained by Hulk Hogan and these guys.
Right.
So boy, it could have been a whole different world. Vince McMahon has certainly got a lot of faults as we've discussed here, but it's he changed the world of wrestling forever.
He did. He certainly did that.
All right, Billy Davies is up next. Everybody wants to say Flair or HBK, but who does Ted think is the greatest in-ring worker of all time?
Oh my gosh.
That's a huge question. So much ground to cover.
Flair or HBK?
Everybody always says it's those two, but I don't know. It's there's a lot to select from. Was there ever a guy that you saw that you're like, now that's the guy?
I don't think there's any one guy that you could say, okay, he's the GOAT. He's there's none like him. I think there are several, and I think Ric Flair is in that. I think that Ricky Steamboat is in that. What was
Shawn Michaels?
Shawn Michaels certainly was part of that, and a lot of that too is the time frame when they were wrestling, and who they were wrestling, and how strong their characters became. Bret Hart, again, another guy who, like me, I don't know if anybody put me in there, but I have a lot of people. I do a lot of Comic-Cons and stuff like that, and then every day they come up, Ted, you were one of the greatest heels of all time.
Yep.
I said, well, thank you very much, and I appreciate it. So, but I don't think you can. There's so many. There's just that'd be like saying who's the greatest football player of all time? Who's the GOAT? There's not. It's like, quarterbacks. Oh my gosh, I can name you 4 or 5 of them right off the top of my head that are, Joe Montana, Roger Staubach. Let's go. Who else?
Tom Brady.
Tom
Yeah,
Brady,
I think it depends on
they're
your
all
perspective
they're
too.
all goats.
It depends on your perspective too, because yep, Tom Brady's maybe the greatest quarterback of all time with winning championships and stuff, but maybe that's not what you view as what's great. Maybe somebody like Lawrence Taylor is the greatest of all time to
Yeah,
you because you view getting sacks and playing really incredible defense as being it. So yeah, it's all a matter of perspective.
yeah, yeah.
Johnny Kirsch, I think is how you say it, is up next. Did Ted ever work with Dutch Mantel? What did you think of him?
Dutch Mantel, I might have worked with him one time. I can't even remember where it was, but it was good. We had a decent match. It wasn't like it wasn't Katie bar the door or burn the house down or whatever, but it was okay, you know. And I think he was a good character. I mean, had the big mustache, and he almost what was that? He almost looked like the cartoon character.
Oh, like Yosemite Sam.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, he does. And yeah, capable worker. Yeah, I'm sure you did fine out there with him.
yeah.
Well, we've got another greatest question, pretty common one. I don't know if you've answered it on the show here yet. Jake B asks, "Who's the greatest tag team of all time and why?" Anybody stand out for you, Ted?
Oh shoot.
Again, there's so many. It's a matter of perspective, right?
Yeah, it is a matter of perspective. You know, Mike Rotunda and I, we really weren't together long enough. We were a tag team, and we were World Wrestling Entertainment's tag team champions for a while. But you know, I don't think that's like the greatest accomplishment of my career is not, and again, Mike and I are good friends to this day, and I think we were a good team. But I don't think okay. I'll tell you a team I'd put in there: the Freebirds.
There you go.
And they were together a long time. Yeah, for a long time. I mean, I think that combination started with Mid-South. Michael Hayes and Buddy Roberts and
Bam Bam.
And Bam Bam, yeah.
Yeah, they were fun, and they operate under Freebird rules too, which means you don't know which pairing you're gonna get if you get into a tag team match with them, which was always a really cool concept.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's a lot of people like to point to like the Hart Foundation or Arn and Tully. A lot of people say the Road Warriors, who are not exactly technicians out there.
Well, yeah, well, again, based on their success, they were, they were good. But yeah, the team you just mentioned, Arn and Tully, what was that? The Four Horsemen.
Yeah, and then they came to the WWF as the Brain Busters for a little bit.
Yeah. Those guys were great.
Man, probably my personal favorite tag team, Arn and Tully, just because they were just technical marvels out there. They were just fun to watch.
Yeah. I'll give you a big tag team: Stan Hansen and Ted DiBiase.
There you go. Now that's a hell of a tag team.
Yeah, and we were the All Japan Pro Wrestling World Tag Team Champions.
That's one that a lot of fans bring up, and they say, "When are you going to talk about Stan and Ted?" And look, I'm trying to do like a slow build up to this thing because it's awesome, and I want to watch all of it. I don't want to give away all the great shit right out of the gate. So we'll get there. Don't worry, folks. It's coming.
Okay.
All right. Isaac Becker is up next. What did Ted think of Abdullah the Butcher? You get a lot of time around Abby.
You know what? I was around Abby more in Japan than anywhere because Abby was a big name in Japan. And of course, a guy his size, there wasn't a whole lot he could do, but his psychology was very good. His understanding of wrestling was very good. I mean, so based on what he knew his character was and what he could do and what he couldn't do, he had it down pretty good. And he made a lot of money in Japan. Yeah, he probably made more money in Japan than he did anywhere. Abdullah the Butcher was a big name in Japan.
What did you think about all the gore and like the fork and the scars on his head and like what was your take on all that?
Well, I mean, it was unique to him. But getting the juice was usually everybody said red turns to green. The red blood turns into green money. And when you would build an event, and things like that, and I don't know if you can see him. I have little bitty scars that are still, you can't see him anymore. But Abdullah, we would, you would cut this way, right? Because it goes with the lines in your forehead.
Uh-huh.
Abby went this way, up and down, and he had this big blade on and he would just go, and it's like it got to where it looked like he had a crater in his head. It did. It was ugly, but it was Abby. It was him, and in his era and in his way, and he was a great performer.